Hey everyone, welcome to our Facebook and YouTube Live. Um, we are talking today about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. It's been a sort of a roller coaster ride with the volatility that these cryptocurrencies have been going up and down in the markets. And I know that there's a lot of questions and a lot of confusion about what is going on. So today we have with us Dr. Subramanian from FIU. He's a professor at FIU, and he is an expert in cryptocurrencies and has done research on cryptocurrencies. So we're so thankful to have Dr. Subramanian here with us so that we can break it down and sort of dispel any sort of doubts that you have about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and Dogecoin and all of those things. So if you have any questions, send us a comment and we'll definitely be asking some of those questions throughout the little live cast. And yeah, send us your comments, send us your questions, send us your love, everything, right? Um, Dr. Subramanian, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, please?
Yeah. So I'm a professor in the College of Business in the Information Systems and Business Analytics area. I've been at FIU for close to 6 years now. Prior to this, I was at Georgia Tech. I got my PhD in information technology from Georgia Tech. Before that, I was in the corporate sector working for Yahoo as a engineering manager, and IBM Labs prior to that. I hold a bachelor's from the National Institute of Technology in India in computer science and a master's in software systems from BITS Pilani in India. In addition, I also hold an executive business management degree from the Indian Institute of Management at Calcutta. My research has primarily been at the intersection of information systems and computer science and economics primarily. I've studied transactions, large-scale transaction systems. My dissertation was on arbitrage in multi-channel e-commerce and in automobile markets, so large-scale transaction systems. And the last 4 or 5 years, I've spent considerable time studying electronic marketplaces that are derived on top of blockchains primarily. With respect to cryptocurrencies, we have an ongoing research stream where we study what is known as value-sensitive design for cryptocurrencies, which is published in the information systems area. And we have been running a 4.5-year study right now on adoption of cryptocurrencies, which is a large-scale studies, which has multiple phases where we've interviewed Bitcoin adopters. We've created instruments for various adoption characteristics about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano as the three primal candidates for studying this. So that's a brief background. That's my brief background.
Sorry, it was not. I was muted. So before we get into all of the adoption parts of the equation, can you tell us a little bit about what cryptocurrency is, how it started, and how does it actually work?
Yeah, so cryptocurrency is a digital asset. It's designed to work as a medium of exchange, wherein individual coin ownership records, right, are stored on a ledger, which exists in form of some kind of a database, and every record in this ledger is ascertained using strong cryptography, and this is secured on what is known as the blockchain. What is interesting here is there's no single party that actually verifies this transaction. I mean, every node, it resides, this database resides on a distributed network of computer nodes, and it's maintained by this large decentralized system that exists globally. Okay, so there are many types of cryptocurrencies. For example, if you take the Bitcoin cryptocurrency per se, Bitcoin is generated using a process known as mining, where uh, these miners who validate each transaction on the network, validate transactions on the network, are rewarded for solving, say, a mathematical puzzle. Okay, and every generation, the number of new cryptocurrencies that are rewarded to miners half. So right now we are at 6.25 Bitcoin per mined block as a reward to miners. Okay, so about 2 years back, about a year and a half back, it was about 12.5 Bitcoin as rewards to miners, so on and so forth. So the idea here is it's a large decentralized computing system, not controlled by one single entity, unlike a bank or a nation's Federal Reserve System, which issues currency. And the other principle that guides it is that in the Bitcoin system, at least, it's deflationary. That means the number of new Bitcoin that is generated reduces every few years, or at every period of every frequent period of time. Okay, so because of its deflationary nature, and also because of its scarcity, it's garnered value, and that's where we are. So that's what cryptocurrency is primarily.
And what are some of the main types of cryptocurrencies? I know, there's Bitcoin and Dogecoin, and there's been so many more that are,
Yeah.
coming to the market. How do those come about, and what are the differences between all of these different cryptocurrencies?
Yes. So if you were to classify cryptocurrencies, there are primarily, the different ways to classify them. One of the ways is basically by the computing algorithm that sort of is responsible for mining or generating this cryptocurrency. Okay, so that is one way. The other way to classify them, which is more useful probably for a generic audience, is based on use. How would you actually use this cryptocurrency? And for the usage of cryptocurrency, we could primarily classify them as coins, which are like Bitcoin. You have Dogecoin, to some extent Ethereum, but Ethereum has a larger purpose too. And then you have utility coins, which give people who own them a certain right, or a certain um, kind of ability to basically perform certain functions on the network, right? Like, for example, if you're writing a contract or things like that. And then the third type could be like security tokens or security cryptocurrencies, which operate similar to the shares, which give you shares in the stock market, which give you certain rights, like the voting rights on a platform for the next role enhancement or the next addition, or for that particular crypto platform. Okay, so that being said, that is one way to classify them. The other way is basically the simple classification, where you would actually look at the underlying algorithm, and then the different algorithms. If you just change the algorithm, you sort of have a new coin, right? Like, for example, you have Bitcoin, you have Bitcoin Gold, you have Bitcoin SV, so on and so forth. All of them basically have a change in their underlying algorithm primarily. So in one of our analysis, we actually showed that the blockchain can have like 5 or 6 unique components. One is actually the mining algorithm. The other one is the data storage algorithm. The other one is a transaction algorithm, which basically enables people to send coins or send token balances across 2 accounts, so on and so forth. So each of these subsystems could basically be modified with a different algorithm, and then you could have a completely new cryptocurrency out there. Okay. That being said, there are certain types of cryptocurrencies that have additional functionality as well. Like Bitcoin was the original one that started in 2008 with this classic Bitcoin paper released by this anonymous entity called Satoshi Nakamoto, which sort of solved two long-standing problems in computer science. Okay, so I don't want to get into the details of those. There's enough literature published about those, but So he basically used, or he or this entity actually used a cryptographic validation to ensure what is known as consensus. Okay, so if 51% of the network agrees that this transaction is true, it's actually a valid transaction on the block. And the way it was designed was that it's very difficult to actually break this the sanctity of the transaction recorded in the block. Like, for example, you have to spend significant amount of computing power to actually break this consensus on a network. Okay, so eventually that was like the first breakthrough in cryptocurrencies. And then once Satoshi rolled out the first version of this network, then other people thought, they could basically enhance this. Like, for example, the Ethereum group led by Vitalik Buterin, they designed the Ethereum virtual machine and sort of conceptualized what is known as a world computer that could not only accomplish transfer of value between two entities, but could also accomplish transfer of trust. Like, for example, if you have a contract, you could actually program a contract to do really amazing stuff. Like, for example, if there are two people who agree to buy and sell a particular good, let's say a piece of digital art, right? Then without needing a third party, you could actually validate that this art is actually an original piece of art. And then you could actually not only accomplish this confirmation of this legitimacy of this piece of art, but you could also pay that particular person and transfer the asset over to your name or to your wallet automatically. So this programmability of on top of the blockchain provided significant amount of power to to create all kinds of unique applications on top of the blockchain. Like at our research group, we've actually a professor here called with Professor Sengupta, we created a Panther chain, and which is a local blockchain, and our undergraduate students, they created this application where they could trace a product created at the farm all the way to the store. So you have this entire supply chain where you can trace how the product moved from the farm to the wholesaler, to the retailer who purchases it from the wholesaler through a bidding process, through the licensing agency that gives it, say, an organic or some other label, and then finally you have it at the retail store. Like, so if you basically want to verify whether a product is truly organic, all you do is scan the QR code, and then you can basically trace it back through the supply chain to the product's origins, right? So this entire supply chain workflow is validated and stored on the blockchain in a decentralized way, right? So all of these unique applications that never existed earlier have sort of started coming to the fore with blockchain and with cryptocurrencies per se. Yeah.
So we've seen a fair amount of people, become millionaires from investing in
Yeah.
crypto, in Bitcoin, when they were, 5 cents, and now
Yeah.
it's, whatever it is right now. Why are people investing in Bitcoin right now, given its volatility?
Yeah. So here's the thing. So society per se has sort of considered. We can go back into the theory of money and etc. and what is money, and what are the properties of money, etc. So the last 10, 12 years, people have started sort of questioning, what is money, and what is the actual meaning of a monetary system that we have, wherein we have centralized entities like governments that have the right to actually print and distribute money, right? So, with a with most of the world's financial systems, it's sort of taken for granted that the governments single-handedly control the supply of money into society, right? But what would happen if there were a crisis like we see in some of the South American countries, right? There's an inflation or a devaluation of the currency by, say, 10,000% or 100,000%, suddenly over a month or 2 months. And then we see that cycle repeating over and over again, say, in Eastern Europe, in other countries in Central Asia, and so on and so forth. So, what would happen in those circumstances? So there's a very interesting article in New York Times, like that said Bitcoin saved my money, where this individual was based out of Venezuela, and I think because of the significant rampant deflation of their local currency, they were able to actually he was able to recoup some part of his lifetime savings, convert that into Bitcoin, and then probably save himself from the significant deflation of the central currency. So people of late, of the last few years, have sort of started using this as a hedge against central currencies in some meaningful way, and that has sort of given them this ability to um, uh, uh, increase. I mean, as the price increased, I guess these people became rich too. But I mean, just like there are millionaires now in this space, there are also people who have lost uh, entire wealth, right, by investing at the wrong time, and basically just following Twitter feeds and so on and so forth. People, so this fear of missing out and greed is as much persistent in this market as people who use it for value investing, I guess. So yeah, so I mean, it's not fair to just say that people are millionaires, but there are also a lot of people who have become paupers in the space by investing in the wrong time. Like if you just follow the Twitter feed or Facebook feeds on some of these cryptocurrency investment groups, you'll find that there are a large number of people who basically are sort of in tremendous amount of trouble. Some of them have basically been insane enough to put their house on a mortgage, take out this loan, and invest in it, considering they'll become millionaires overnight. But suddenly the market tanked and they lost everything, right? So that phenomenon also exists. So yeah,
It's such an interesting time, because we've seen Bitcoin as high as $64,000 back
yeah,
in April,
yeah,
which and now it's down to 39,000, which we haven't seen since January.
yeah,
But at the same time, we're seeing that Bitcoin is still up over 30% for the year and
yeah,
over 300% over the past 12 months.
yeah,
That's according to CNBC.
yeah.
And so why are Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies so volatile right now? And what do these conflicting headlines tell us about? And do these tell us of anything about what to expect in the future?
So I mean, this is a very interesting question, and it's very deep too. So 4 years back, when we started a research project about adoption, volatility was the in thing, right? Like a lot of people were really worried uh, about volatility in markets, and volatility drives two kinds of emotions amongst people. One is fear, and the other one is greed. So as prices go up, there is this kind of an effect, whirlwind effect, where it drives in a lot of people because of the fear of missing out, and they tend to invest. And then at some point, um, I mean, whatever goes up in this market, there's a short-term reversal that, which is what the finance people call. Whenever there's a short-term reversals, the reverse of the whirlwind happens, right? Where the prices continue to fall, and things come crashing down big time, right? So where are we? I mean, is the volatility? So there are multiple reasons why this volatility is happening of late, right? One of which is, uh, I mean, if you go back into the theories of finance, we'll see that the price of an asset directly reflects the amount of information that's available to people uh, or investors, right? Uh, that's the information actually means price, right? So of late, we've been seeing that significant number of people who were probably not involved in the creation of any of these cryptocurrencies 12 years back, or even the advancements in and the tons of hours and labor that all these app developers around the world sat to write, suddenly come into these markets and with large amounts of capital and start making public statements. Some of these public statements are made possibly for personal gain. Some of them are made with a good intention to sort of uh, give a, I mean, guide these projects in a certain direction. Like for example, the recent uh, tweet that hinted at Bitcoin's huge energy inefficiency is something that's been known for the last 10, 12 years. There are entire papers where people calculate the amount of energy that's consumed, but it's not something new. So some of these information has sort of percolated into investor consciousness all of a sudden. And when we have this kind of negative information that comes in at the same time, it reflects in the price as well and increases the number of sellers compared to buyers. So so that's what is happening here. And this will continue for a long time because this is a globally integrated asset that trades 24/7. So if not here in the US, we would have news coming from China that says it's complete continuous, it's going to regulate it. If not China, it's going to come from India that says, okay, India is going to basically ban cryptocurrency. So this kind of news, I mean, because this is a 24/7 globally integrated market where people from around the world buy and sell one common asset against local currencies, uh, the amount of volatility that we can expect or amount of informational inefficiency that we can expect in this asset is also significantly large. Okay, so
And so if people are interested in buying, Bitcoin or Dogecoin or any of those other, or Ethereum or any of those other cryptocurrencies, where can they do that? And also, what are the tax implications of cryptocurrencies?
yeah, so so the IRS has clear guidelines. I'm not a qualified CPA, so for tax implications, you have to basically people have to consult their corresponding CPAs. People can buy. I mean, where do you buy cryptocurrencies? That's sort of you can search online. There are in the US there are like multiple channels to buy cryptocurrencies. I'm not. I'm definitely as an academic. I'm not going to advertise any exchange, any particular exchange, or any particular. I'm not going to basically watch for any particular product. So there are multiple ways. We can go into any of these exchanges. You can basically exchange the dollar for the crypto. You can walk into Bitcoin ATMs as well in the US. There are tons of Bitcoin ATMs where you can go and exchange cash for Bitcoin after providing your IDs and so on and so forth. Uh, there are many ways here, at least legally, to purchase and hold cryptocurrencies. And of course, IRS has very strong stipulated regulations on how much tax you have to pay on the profits you make, etc. And it would be best to consult CPAs for tax purposes. Yeah.
It's really interesting because we talk about the tax implications and how people will have to pay taxes if they take out if they convert those coins into physical money. But some governments and people are worried about the lack of regulations on crypto, and some say that crypto can lead to fraud, while some other people say that it can lead to prevent fraud.
Yeah.
How do these two sort of contrasting sides sort
Yes.
of differ, and what kinds of regulations, if any, should be implemented to
Yeah.
stabilize these markets?
Yes. So this question is a very interesting question. It's got multiple two parts at least as far as I see it. One is what types of regulations are ideal for cryptocurrencies, and the second part is this contradicting a contradicting statement about cryptocurrencies encourage fraud, and the second part is cryptocurrencies help prevent fraud. Which is sort of like a Janusite view of the same thing. When you have the Janus phase, we have the same entity of cryptocurrency as entity, and one side it prevents, the other side it actually sort of enhances fraud. Okay, let me answer the first part about regulations. So we have this paper published in the Communications of the Association of Information Systems Journal, where Professor Cousins, who's the chair that you talked to today morning, she's also a qualified lawyer. She has a JD, and There are four different agencies in the US, right? Like the SEC, the FINRA, the CBDC, and I think the fourth. All of these four agencies basically view, and the IRS, right? All of these four agencies actually view cryptocurrencies differently, and all of them stipulate different rules and regulations for registration of cryptocurrencies and also taxation for cryptocurrencies. Okay, so in the US at least the law is advanced enough that we have some legal regulatory oversight over cryptocurrency issuance of cryptocurrencies and taxation of cryptocurrencies, though it's still not perfect. There are different newer types of assets that are coming in, and I just read this news recently that there's this new body that's affiliated to SEC that is sort of coming out with a multi-agency regulation for cryptocurrency, and whenever that comes out for different types of cryptocurrencies, like I mentioned that there are different types of tokens, each one has a different purpose. So it's a pretty deep and involved topic, because there could be multiple uses of cryptocurrencies. Like, for example, if I own a large apartment complex, I could basically sell shares in that complex as crypto. And then people who actually rent apartments in that apartment complex could basically give their monthly rents, or the owners of that cryptocurrencies could also basically earn monthly interest or monthly rents on the shares that they actually own in this apartment, right? So what would you do in such cases? What are the types of laws that bind such security tokens? What are the types of taxes that need to be levied on these kinds of security tokens? Because there'll be two types of appreciations. One is the token value would appreciate over a period of time, and then the rent would also appreciate. So, how do you separate these? How do you actually issue taxes on these? So very challenging. This is like one simple scenario, right? Like this, all kinds of financial instruments have been created in crypto. And regulating all these different types of financial instruments is a challenge, right? So right now there's work in progress, and there are like really qualified hands looking at these. So that being said, many countries regulation is nowhere close to where we are in the US. People are still deciding whether to regulate it, whether to keep this legal, whether to ban this, or what is the kind of stance they take. Like, for example, in India, right? So there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty here. Now, again, that's what I could comment about this case. I mean, for more details, you could refer to our paper on, it's called Cryptocurrency Regulations and Decentralized Applications. You could do a Google Scholar search and look at what we have stated. We also presented this at a panel at the Information Systems conference here in the US. So that's peer reviewed, so you could look at that for more details. The other part is fundamentally about, so this fraud and basically detecting fraud, right? So there's a truth to both of them, right? Like, one is there's a certain element of truth to both of them. So if so on one way, the blockchain and cryptocurrencies allow what is known as pseudonymity, or people to actually engage in transactions without basically going through KYC or whatever else. You could have a wallet. You need not register with an exchange. You could have a wallet locally on your computer, and you could actually send your crypto to whoever you want, right? Like, or that kind of transaction could be facilitated on the blockchain. So there's no way for people to know who's basically sending the money to whom. And there are other kinds of techniques wherein, like mixing, where the recipient need not disclose his wallet address either. He could basically point out, he could just give out an address to a mixer, and that mixer could do things like distribute the money amongst different wallets and things like that, technically. So both the sender and the buyer have ways to hide their identity and not disclose who they are when engaging in a transaction, which makes it very, very this thing scary, right? Like, but different types of blockchains, like the Bitcoin blockchain, it's open. Anybody can know anybody can know which transaction, how wallet based transactions happen, so on and so forth. And if you just do a simple search, you'll find that people who actually use Bitcoin as a medium of transfer, there's now technology which can actually heuristically predict the likelihood of the location of both source and destination wallets. Okay, so law enforcement agencies have been able to, with I mean, if the fraud is significantly large, right, have been able to trace transactions and apprehend criminals who've engaged in some of this kind of transactions, because all of these transactions are visible on the blockchain. And the blockchain, anybody could download it, parse it. In fact, Google runs a day. I mean, if you just go to Google, you can see the entire blockchain and the set of transactions on the blockchain. You could download it onto your local desktop. You could parse these transactions, so on and so forth. So there's some amount of validity there, which says that for some kinds of blockchains and cryptocurrencies, it's likely that people can actually trace the entire path or track the path of transactions that have happened, and using a combination of techniques, like which include tracing the wallets to exchanges, and in cooperation with wallets, with exchanges, through summons or through legal summons, people can trace the source and destination of transactions. Okay, so that is possible. That being said, there are other types of blockchains where you cannot even look at or understand what transactions happen, like the Monero blockchain. Even the blockchain is completely encrypted, so that prevents people from even looking into the blockchain and trying to find out what kinds of transactions happened there, so on and so forth. So that is plausible, but some of those blockchains and those kinds of cryptocurrencies are not really popular. I mean, even if somebody would want to buy them, it'd be difficult because many exchanges may not support such cryptocurrencies at the end of the day. Okay, so this is always like a cat and mouse game, because it's a blockchain. It's possible to basically look at transactions or find transactions. Um, but if it's not the blockchain, I mean, but there are newer technologies being developed that sort of hide them too. That being said, when central bank digital currencies come out, it's like a perfect surveillance equipment. Right now, you can carry the dollar in your pocket and basically engage in all kinds of miscreant activities. But when CBDCs are sort of out there, then sort of the government can perfectly track or transaction flows or dollar value flows on the blockchain, from the source to the current point of time, about where the dollar flew, or how the dollar passed through the system entirely, because all transactions are recorded on the blockchain. Okay.
Wow, it's so interesting just how everything is just kind of changing, so quickly, and there's so many different things happening, and how every single one of these cryptocurrencies are so different from one another. We have a question from one of our viewers. His name is Brandon Runkle. He's asking if this is just a dip or if the bull run is over.
Yeah, so these are really so predicting. So yeah, so the markets, follow what is known as a Brownian motion, which is sort of completely random. It's very difficult to predict whether it's a dip or it's actually temporary, whether the dip is temporary or it's going to come back up or whatever. You don't know. I mean, there have been many theories in finance that basically look at what is known as a wave theory, so on and so forth, which basically says that the market moves in terms of waves, and eventually the net gain over a long infinite period of time is zero. Okay, but we do not know whether it's a temporary dip, it's a permanent dip, or there's going to be more number of dips that are going to happen. It's all dependent on the information that comes out in the future and how markets uh, uh, basically react to that kind of information. So that's what I can tell for now. I mean, we've tried to run. So uh, in another project, we actually use deep learning to sort of predict uh, Bitcoin or cryptocurrency price movements using about 24 different sentiments in the market. And even there's an error, error of 10 to 24% in our prediction. So it's very difficult to predict. That error is the area where nobody can say whether it's going to go down further or it's going to come up. It's a hard problem, even mathematically, to track. Yeah.
And so Miami's trying to sort of position itself as a, tech
Yeah.
digital hub. The new FTX stadium, like with the naming rights, and there are some localities that are accepting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies for to pay, fines or things like that. What do you see? How do you see these developments shaping the financial future of Miami in the short run and in the long run?
Yes. So our mayor, Francis Suarez, happens to be an alumni of our College of Business here. And he's a very dynamic mayor who understands technology and who sort of clearly knows, how to position the city of Miami. I mean, Miami is a very international city. It's at the it's very strategically located. It's sort of like the entry point into a large economy. On one side, we have the Caribbean, which is like a few hours flight. On the other side, we have the entire South American continent, and like access to like multiple markets from one location by air and by sea makes it, and this young crowd, right? The energy in Miami is very different. For anybody who's visited the South Miami beach, you really relate to what I'm saying here. So, I mean, all of this energy right now is sort of just expended in tourism, I guess, and there's a large financial incentive for banks to locate here and the financial sector to locate here. A lot of properties here are owned by expatriates who reside in the nearby geographies um, across South America and also the Caribbean, I guess. So, transferring money through the traditional banking system, exchanging into US dollars and then back into the local currencies, is basically giving a significant cut away to the banking system. So cryptocurrencies sort of make all of these transactions a lot easier. If you want to pay your taxes, you could directly pay it, and if you accept cryptocurrencies, and you directly pay it in cryptocurrencies, so on and so forth. Plus, that's what makes it very attractive for a city like Miami. Plus, I guess the youth here, right? There's a significant large population, young Gen Z students, like the people I teach in my class. When I started the Bitcoin cryptocurrency research project about 4.5 years back, we had only 30% of the people who knew about this. Right now, there's almost like 100% of the class knows about crypto. They also own crypto, and they basically transact with crypto. It's phenomenal that in the way the uh, knowledge has increased amongst the Gen Z, which constitutes a lot of this population. So I think it's a great move. Sort of right now, the way we see it is like a lot of development is happening in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. I mean, basically, when I used to work for Yahoo, I'd basically be based out of the Sunnyvale office in San Francisco. But and in Bangalore, India, which are both Silicon Valleys, which are sort of where a lot of the tech workforce actually lives and executes. But having Miami at the center of our attracting capital to Miami, which is like a big deal because it sort of brings forth a combination of trade, a combination of international commerce, a combination of government, and also provides the young, energetic folks here in Miami to basically contribute to the next generation of the economy. So that's what I think. I mean, in addition to that, I'd also definitely like to mention, our university sort of has attracted significant amount of talent both to our undergraduate and graduate programs. Students studying blockchain for business program. I mean, I teach that at both undergraduate and at the graduate program. We have large AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning focused programs. We have an MBA in data analytics and business analytics, and also a master's in data science offered in the computer science department. So it's a growing university with like a lot of deep technical programs that sort of make us also a research center, a research focused establishment for some of the work that's happening in crypto.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and giving
Yeah,
us so much insight and knowledge about the cryptocurrency world and what's going on with all of these different currencies and markets and the volatility of it all. I really, really appreciate your time, and I'm sure that all of our viewers do as well. So thank you so much for your time, and really, really appreciate you.
thank you. Thank you, Jose.
You have a
Bye.
great day. All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.